Nahmaduhu wa nusalli ala rasulihil kareem. Respected viewers, in this short clip, we'll try to understand about the 16th chapter of the Holy Quran, Nahl. Nahl means honeybee. Why the term or the word Nahl for this chapter? Scholars say it refers to the verse number 68 in which the word Nahl has been used. It is mentioned. Nahl is honeybee. In two verses, 68 and 69, God mentions about the honeybee. Now, what is important is 1400 years ago, the Prophet, peace be upon him, or in the Quran mentions about the honeybee miraculously. How? Because refers to honeybee in verse number 68 and 69 in a feminine gender. Now, in this you can say there are two miracles. Number one, chapter Nahl is 16th chapter of the Holy Quran. Nahl, it refers to the masculine gender of the honeybee, and it has 16 chromosomes, whereas the feminine gender of honeybee has 32 chromosomes. It has 32 because it has two pairs of chromosomes, so it has double. The reason is the masculine honeybee called the drone has unfertilized eggs, hatched on unfertilized eggs, whereas the workers or the female honeybee has fertilized eggs. Now, what is important is in this verse number 68 and 69, God uses the term for honeybee in a feminine gender, like wattakhidhi, wakuli, wasluki, or butuniha. So these pronouns that we see in these verbs used, like wakuli, eat, this is for second person singular, for a feminine gender, honeybee. Now, the point to be noted is, how come 1400 years ago anybody could guess that it is the honeybee, which is feminine gender, which is vital in producing the honey? And it is only the honeybee, the feminine gender, which is active in all these operations of or functions of the whole honeycomb, or building the hive, then pollination, then producing the honey, etc. So this has been in fact discovered for the first time in 1845 by Johann Zirzon, and thereafter, some about 60-70 years ago, many universities in America and Europe, etc., they have carried out research to study further the details of the honeybee activities. So this is you can say a miracle in the Holy Quran, which refers to the feminine gender, because it is a worker bee. Worker means the feminine honeybee produces all these things, not the male. And as I mentioned earlier, Nahl, it is 16th chapter. It can't be a coincidence that Nahl, the masculine gender, has 16 chromosomes. It has 16 chromosomes and the chapter number is 16. So these are two miracles you can say, and there are many other miracles in the whole surah that one can come across if just goes through examining from the mathematical point of view in the structure of these words, the letters, etc. So, our purpose today is to understand briefly about the purport of the gist of this chapter, An-Nahl. You know, there is a second name of this surah. It is also called Suratul Ni'am, this chapter of blessings, because in the whole chapter, which has 128 verses divided into 16 sections, one finds numerous blessings, favors and bounties of God explained in different verses. Now, to be precise, if God has listed 50 blessings, this is actually listed by God. You know, there are many like Wahi, revelation, the prophets. Now, if you study from verse number 1, the beginning, to verse number 80, in these you will find 25 verses wherein God has listed or enumerated these blessings, various blessings. Now, these blessings, you know, they vary from very minute things, spiritual things, to material things, from small things to the biggest galaxies, the skies, the stars, etc., etc. Everything has been enumerated. And what is important is, God has mentioned, Namatullahi la tuhsuha. If you try to count, if you try to enumerate the blessings of Allah, the favors of Allah, the bounties of Allah, la tuhsuha, you cannot count them, you cannot enumerate them, you cannot number them. They are countless. They are countless. Now, secondly, what we find is the approach of this surah, this chapter, is perfectly rational approach. It appeals to the reason. How? You know, each man has different faculties, different capability to understand, to appreciate, to comprehend, and to grasp. So the Quran in this chapter appeals to the reason in different levels of, you know, understanding of man. For instance, some bounties have been explained, some favors of God have been enumerated, and then it is mentioned, like, you know, in verse number 11, 12, 13. In 3 verses we find God says, Inna fi zalika la ayatil liqawmi yatafakkarun. Then second, Inna fi zalika la ayatil liqawmi yaqilun. And third, Inna fi zalika la ayatil liqawmi yatazakkarun. So thus we find that in these 11, 12 and 13 verses, 3 levels of understanding have been mentioned. Now, what are they? Yaqilun and yatafakkarun is the highest order. That is, it refers to the highest faculty of man. Deducing, analyzing, comparing, understanding through intuition, you can say. Whatever you observe. Now, what we find is, here one employs one's reason to understand the blessings and through blessings to God. So from the creation, if you try to understand the creation, if you see, if you understand them, the creation points to the Creator. The awesome nature, the wonderful nature points to the Creator of the nature. So this is possible when one understands. The Quran appeals, yatafakkarun. Don't you think, don't you analyze, don't you deduce? Then the second level is yaqilun. Those who reason out, those who understand. And still at the lower level is yazdakkarun. When one tries to understand, then one remembers. A reminder is a reminder to the person. Now these yazakkarun, yatafakkarun and yaqulun, these are the capabilities given by God to man to understand what is visible, and from the visible to deduce about the invisible, that is unseen God. This is an important lesson from this chapter. The bounties are there. So the bounties certainly make you think, ponder, reflect about the Creator, the God. Similarly, if we see in verse number 65, verse number 67 and 69, we come across a similar approach, similar thing. Inna fi zalika la ayatan liqawmi yasma'un. There the word yasma'un is there. Yasma'un, it is empirical approach, where you experience things, you observe things from your senses. Yasma'un is hearing. Hearing is a sense. Among the 5 senses, hearing is one sense. So you acquire knowledge, you try to understand things by hearing. So it reflects the empirical approach. Whatever observed, from that you try to understand and deduce. And secondly, all people do not have the capability to deduce or to understand a very higher level. So they just, whatever they see, from that they understand. But some have the capability to, even higher capability, even to discern or to ponder or to reflect something which is visible, but from that, even without that, a person can depend upon the intuition and deduce the higher things. So thus you can say it appeals to different types of people, different categories of the people, those who have higher intellect or lower intellect. So all are addressed in this. So this is the second. Thus it is a perfectly rational approach. Now what is important in this is, God has conveyed the message. How? Through the biggest blessing of all is the wahi, the revelation. What is referred to here? Yunazzilul malaikata birruhi min amrihi ala man yasha'u min ibadihi an anziru annahu la ilaha illa ana fattaqun. So this has God revealed His message, the revelation, with the angels to the messengers. Ala man yasha'u min ibadihi, among the servants of God, among the human beings, whoever He selects. So thus it refers to the highest blessing of God to man, that God not only provides for sustenance, for your physical needs, but also for your spiritual needs. That is the highest category of blessing, the wahi. Here it is referred to as a ruh. Now, there is another important aspect in this. The word ruh, it denotes some kind of spirit. It vivifies those who were suffering, those who were passing through persecution. The wahi, the revelation, vivifies them, energizes them, stimulates them, boosts their morale, strengthens their confidence to face the hostile environment. So thus this is the purpose of wahi. Now, what is the message? The message of all the prophets here. An anziru, warn humankind. About what? Annahu la ilaha illa ana fattaqun. This is gist of the message of God to entire mankind. And what is important is there are two things in this. Number one, that there was only common religion to entire mankind from day one, since the beginning of this world till today, or till the last day of this world, there will be only one religion. And what was the message of that? La ilaha illa ana fattaqun, that there is no God except Allah. And fear me, fear God. God says, fear me, fattaqun, so don't fear anybody else other than me. This is the sum and substance of the message which was revealed by God to mankind through all the prophets. So thus, what man does here is, man deviates from the right path, because he is not able to recognize the bounties or the the blessings of God. Now, another important thing, there are different types of blessing that God has mentioned in this, but He makes it very clear to man. Whatever man enjoys throughout his life, all the blessings, whatever he has in any form, it is the gift of God. In verse number 53, it is mentioned very categorically, وَمَا بِكُم مِّن نِعْمَةِ اللَّهِ فَمِنَ اللَّهِ. Whatever blessings or favors that you are enjoying, it is only from Allah. Then God asks in verse number 71, أَفَبِنِعْمَةِ اللَّهِ يَجْحَدُونَ. Will they then deny the favors of Allah, the blessings of Allah? And in next verse number 72, it is mentioned, وَبِنِعْمَةِ اللَّهِ هُمْ يَكْفُرُونَ. Will they reject and disbelieve the favors of Allah? Now here, yakfurun, two meanings. One, the rejection of the favors, being ungrateful to God for all the bounties and blessings that he is enjoying from God, yet being ungrateful. And secondly, not only disbelief, not only being ungrateful, but also being a disbeliever, not believing in God. So this is, in fact, the response of man. So one set of response is rejection. One set of response is, rebellion from God. This, and what he says, why they do so? Because, they call it asatirul awwaleen. What is this? What is religion? What is this Quran, etc.? What are these stories? These are old stories of old people. Asatirul awwaleen. This has been repeated earlier. So it is, what is new in this? This is what they call, they do not know. This is what they, say, put as the reason for rejecting. And secondly, their arrogance. They feel they have totally forgotten God, the blessings, etc. They are leading the lives of animals, the cattle, who are there in front of them. They benefit from it, yet they do not, discern to draw a lesson and reach out to God. Inshallah, the next part of this we'll try to understand in the next episode. Wa akhiru da'wana anil hamdulillahi rabbil alamin.